What is up everyone, Mark here, welcome back to my channel, welcome if you're new. Today I'm going to be giving my top 10 for Eurovision 2023 after the show. Now this was a very interesting edition of the show, one that had a lot of surprises, that is for sure. So before we begin, please be sure to like and subscribe and also comment who was your winner for Eurovision this year. Without further ado, let's get into my number 10 spot, which is Estonia. This is Alika with the song Bridges, and this is a song that was not quite close to my top 10 for a while, but after watching her in the grand final, I was totally impressed. Alika gave a fantastic performance with some of the best choreography, vocals, and staging that we've gotten in this competition. I was really glad they brought the self-playing piano. I loved her outfit. I really liked how simple the staging was. I thought her vocals were incredibly powerful, and whereas some songs that I was considering for my top 10 like Lithuania also had good vocals, I feel like Alika had the most consistently strong performance of the grand final and really gave us a standout show. I wasn't really that surprised that she only got like 22 points from the televote just because this is a pretty standard Adele sounding song. I knew this was definitely right up the jury's alley, so it was no surprise that she got so many jury points, but I was actually pretty surprised that she got so many jury points that she made the top 10. I think she definitely deserved it. As I've said in the past, I'm not usually a big fan of songs like this, but in the grand final, this totally worked for me. I really was not thinking in my head, oh, this is such a generic song. I was thinking, wow, what an amazing performance, what an amazing presentation, and what a great artist. So this was one of the big risers in my list. Very happy for Estonia for making top 10 this year. And with that said, let us move on to my number 9 spot, which is Albania. This is Albina and Familja Kelmendi with the song Duje, and this in my opinion was one of the most, if not the most underrated song of the night. Albania only got, what, 22nd for what I considered a top 10 performance. I mean, Albina and her whole family were on point in this performance. They all had great vocals, they all had great stage presence. I also really loved the staging. The staging was very simple, yes, but extremely effective. The use of LEDs was very well done. It wasn't totally in your face, but it stood out and it really elevated this performance. I was honestly just very impressed with this entire entry. I thought Albania deserved much better than what they got, and I hope that Albania continues to send songs like this in the future, even though this year, for whatever reason, they weren't even top 20. So for me, this entry, this performance, everything gets a 9.5 out of 10. So with that, let us move on to my number 8 spot, which is Armenia. This is Brunette with the song Future Lover, and one of the most powerful entries we've gotten this year by far. I honestly wasn't that into this one at first, but then as time went along, as I saw more of Brunette's performances, this started to really grow on me. Now, I wasn't a big fan of this in semifinal 2. I thought it was pretty good, but I was kind of thrown off by the dance break. There was so much mist that I just couldn't really see her, but in the grand final, all of my concerns were answered. I mean, this was honestly a flawless performance, and even though I'm not the biggest fan of the song, I gotta say, Brunette did a fantastic job and should have scored higher than 14th place. I mean, 14th is not bad. I mean, she still did better than some of the other favorites I have on this list, but I think she was a standout and kind of like Rosalind was a bit underrated by the juries and the televote. I'm not sure if Brunette will become a huge global hit after this, but keep in mind, Rosalind became incredibly popular after Eurovision and she only got like 20th place. So with that, let us move on to my number 7 spot, to another artist who was very underrated this year, and that is Luke Black. This is of course Serbia's entry, Sama mi se spava, and one that I was so shocked to see only got, what, 3rd to last place? As you might know, I have been a huge fan of this song, of Luke Black, of this performance. I feel like this is kind of like Constructus' entry last year, and that it has a lot of elements of performance art. It's not so much about the song itself, it really is about the entire show. The staging, the dancers, everything like that. But for me, I actually like the song too, so it was very surprising when Luke Black did not even make the top 20. I mean, we had that moment in semifinal 2, remember that, with Game Over, and I don't think that really happened in the grand final. I think they might have muffled the audience during that part for, well, kind of obvious reasons. I really thought this would have been a fan favorite. He gave a really good performance, the staging was really good, the whole thing was just super unique and very exciting to me. The only reason this has kind of fallen to my number 7 spot is really just because some of the other entries impressed me a bit more, but regardless, this was amazing. And I also was, I will say, very shocked to find out that Luke Black just barely qualified in semifinal 1. I know that was a tough semi, but man, really? I think Luke Black is incredible. For me, this gets a 9.5 out of 10. I really feel like he deserved a lot better, but in any case, let's move on to my number 6 spot, which is Moldova. This is Pasha Parfeni with the song Soarele și Luna, and this has been one of my favorite songs for a while. I was very impressed with the performance he gave both in semifinal 1 and in the grand final, and in my opinion, he kind of did deserve the top 10, but hey, I mean, 18th place is still higher than a lot of these other entries, so I'll take what we can get. I mean, this was definitely a very unconventional entry, one that some casual viewers might have been confused by, but for me, this was just simply one of the best. This had very similar vibes to Fulan last year, which also did not do that well, unfortunately, and I think it's just that style of music. music. As we'll see later in this list, of course, with Eaea, I think there was a similar issue there, where the performance, the overall entry was great, but the song itself is very unique and not necessarily everybody's type of music. This song, and also Eaea, and of course Fulan last year, has a very traditional, almost ritualistic aesthetic to it that you just don't get from a lot of songs. And again, I just don't think that the public or, a lot of these voters or even the juries are quite ready for that in a sense. So I wasn't too upset with the result. I wasn't too surprised by it, but I was hoping that a lot of elements of the song that I love, like the choreography, the costumes, the staging, the epic flute guy, would have been able to push this song at least to the top 15, maybe even the top 10. But as we know, that is not what happened. Honestly, at the very least, I'm glad they qualified. For me, this song will get a 9.5 out of 10. Loved it in the grand final, loved it even before then. And with that said, let us move on to my number 5 spot, which is Slovenia. This is Joker Out with the song Carpe Diem, and one of my all-time favorites. This song is exactly my type of music. I am a huge indie rock fan, and of course, that is exactly what this song is giving us. Joker Out had a fantastic performance in both the semifinal and the grand final. I did have some issues with the semifinal performance, mostly just down to Bojan's vocals. I felt they could have been a bit stronger. I felt that there could have been more energy in the performance, but in the grand final, they gave their all. They were amazing. I actually really loved it. I thought this was a really strong performance. Their charisma was off the charts. I mean, I was actually very surprised that this did not even make the top 20, because I thought this would be a clear televote favorite, or at least top 10 in the televote, just because, these guys are so charismatic. They're so much fun. The song is so catchy and great. I mean, Slovenia doesn't tend to do that well anyway. I mean, we saw what happened last year with LPS Disco, which I thought was a really good song, finishing last in their semifinal. I mean, that was a shock. Slovenia doesn't really do well in Eurovision for some reason. Their songs are very underrated, and I think that's what happened here, because I was very surprised. I mean, even the running order was kind of in their favor. Very odd, but also so were a lot of their results this year, to be honest, and I guess Eurovision just wasn't ready for it. For me, this was excellent. This gets a 9.5 out of 10. Loved it. With that, let's move on to my number 4 spot, which is Israel. This is Noah Kirill with the song Unicorn, and this was, as you might expect, phenomenal. I was so impressed by this performance. I thought Noah did a great job. Her vocals somehow were on point, despite doing all those dance moves, despite giving us excellent choreo. Noah simply stole the show. And yeah, maybe this is not totally my type of music. I've never been the biggest fan of pop music, but for this one, I have no critiques. Noah was incredible. This performance was incredible. I was in love with it, and for me, this will get a 10 out of 10. She definitely did deserve her placement. I mean, I was very happy to see her get the top 3. Just really excited to see what Israel sends next, because this is definitely a big return to form after what they sent last year. So with that said, let us move on to my top 3, beginning with my number 3 spot, which is Sweden. This is, of course, the winner this year. Loreen was not my winner, but I think this definitely was a well-deserved win, just given how great the performance was. Yes, I'm not the biggest fan of the song itself or the lyrics, but I actually do enjoy the song quite a bit. I mean, I listen to it a lot. It is very, very catchy, and anything I have against the song really is overshadowed by how great of a show she gave us in both the semifinal and the grand final. Somehow, after 11 years, Loreen still has the same magic she gave us in Euphoria, and really brought that to the stage. And I was very impressed, knowing she's almost 40, being able to sing this well, doing all these dance moves and moving around and being in different poses. Like, I don't know how she did that. Very impressive. Hats off to her for that. I will say I was a bit disappointed by her win, just because she wasn't my winner, and she also was a previous winner, so there was something that kind of bugged me about a previous winner winning again, but we'll talk more about this in a second. Besides the win itself, I think she gave a winner-worthy performance. I mean, what more can I say? Well, there is a bit more I can say, so with that said, let us move on to my number 2 spot on this list. Jumping right off of my number 3 spot, it's crazy, it's party, it's Käärijä. This is, of course, Finland's entry, which is the song Cha Cha Cha. This, in my opinion, definitely deserved to win. I think Käärijä did a fantastic job. I think this was one of the most fun and entertaining entries, one of the most exciting. I mean, the whole crowd loved it. And come on, there's a reason he got so many televote points. I wish the juries gave it a bit more love, but they still gave it quite a few points, to be honest. Overall, this was just one of my favorite entries by far of this year, and I will say too, this song was very much tied with my number 1 spot. Either of them, if they won, I would have been very happy. I really think Käärijä deserved it, 100%, and it's a song that I will listen to a lot for a very long time. I think Käärijä has a great career ahead of him, and this should not be a discourager. I think he really is a great artist and will do great things in his career. Eurovision is just a stepping stone, and even though he didn't win the contest, he won over all of us. For me, I will give Käärijä a 10 out of 10. Totally would have deserved to win. I really wish he would have won, but with that said, there is one song that I did like a little bit more than Käärijä, but again, it could have gone either way. These two were almost tied for me, and that is Spain. This is Blanca Paloma with the song Eaea. and a song that I simply have fallen in love with. Blanca Paloma, in my opinion, is one of the most talented artists in Europe, definitely one of the most talented artists in Spain, and she gave us such a unique and exciting entry. Kind of like with Serbia last year, it's not about the song itself, it's really about the whole thing, the spectacle, the show, the staging, the performance, the vocals. Everything about this was top notch, and to me, this was by far one of the most captivating performances of the night. I loved a lot of new stuff too that she added, like that ray of light on her hand while she's kneeling, and also some of the additional lighting she had and effects that she had in the background, and of course, especially her final note. She actually managed to sing like the studio track, which was very hard to do. I could tell it was definitely not easy, but she hit those notes flawlessly. My expectations were not low, not by any means, but she somehow surpassed them, and for me was my favorite performance of the night, second only, or rather tied with Käärijä. Now, I wasn't too surprised about the placement, just because this is a very out there and different song. It is very traditional, it combines a lot of elements of flamenco, which is very unique to Spain, and I didn't think a lot of casual audiences would click with it that much, but I really did expect the jury to give it at least some points. The jury gave it, yeah, I mean a little bit, but not as much as I was expecting. I really thought with her vocals, with that staging, she would have been at least top 5 in the jury votes, but that was not the case. And even with a televote, I figured she would get more than, 5 points, but unfortunately, kind of like with Fulham last year, we just saw that this type of music just isn't quite hitting with the casual viewer just yet. So still, I think Blanca Paloma is a fantastic artist. I hope she's not discouraged by this result. I think she still did amazing. She got my vote, that's for sure. And as someone who is part of the rest of the world, I'm glad she at least got 2 points from us. For me, of course, this gets a 10 out of 10. Simply perfection, a standout of the night, and one of my favorite entries that Spain has ever sent. Before we wrap up, I do want to mention some songs that did not make this list, which I think are also very good and that I do want to give a shout out to. One of those is Lithuania. Lithuania was very close to making my top 10. The only reason Monica did not make it is just because in the last part of the song, those last couple of notes sounded very different. I'm not sure if that was a mistake or if it was intentional. I mean, it kind of threw me off a bit, but otherwise, what a fantastic song. I mean, she very nearly made the top 10 in the actual show. Another entry I want to give a shout out to is, of course, Portugal, Mimiket Ai Coração. What a phenomenal song. Mimiket is incredible. Great choreo, great everything. As I've mentioned in the past, the staging was a bit lacking this year, but that wasn't her fault. She was still incredible. Felt that she definitely deserved at least a top 15 result. I also want to give a shout out to France. I thought France was amazing. Beautiful song, great vocals. Some of the camera angles weren't that great, which wasn't, of course, Lazara's fault, but it kind of did hinder my enjoyment of this performance, but still fantastic. She did a great job, and the staging was top notch. Okay, I'll give 2 more shout outs and then we'll wrap this up. I also do want to mention Germany, which should not have gotten last place in my opinion. I thought Germany was really strong this year and had a great song. And yeah, maybe it wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but as a fan of rock and metal, I really enjoyed it. And the last shout out, of course, is Austria. Austria really deserved better this year. I thought they were great in the grand final and really did not have any critiques outside of, some vocal moments, but that really wasn't such a big deal. I wish they had done better, but again, they went first, so it was difficult either way. But regardless, they were amazing, deserved way better than they got. And that wraps up my shout outs. So let me know your winner down below if you agree, disagree with this list, and also what you might want to see next. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Peace.